going to say a couple years ago, but I guess a couple decades ago. We crossed paths. School that I was at was a school called North Judson Stampede, almost identical to this place. About 450 kids at the time. David was a sport star in football, basketball, baseball. I coached him in basketball, baseball. Outstanding performer, I think, maybe all-time receiver in Indiana when he graduated. And then he went and had a great career at Ball State. Got into a little journalism, went to Northwestern, went up to South Bend, worked with the South Bend Tribune, covered the Irish, Notre Dame, and now he's over in Chicago, Chi-Town, works with the Chicago Tribune, among other things, covers the Bears. And so he's taking time out of his day to drive up here. And all these speakers now, like they're getting some big salary to come in here and talk. You know, we said we were doing this for your benefit. It was amazing the response we got of people volunteering to come out and talk to you to help share and give back. So, welcome, David Haugh.
It's nice to be here, actually. And I was going to say, you said that I was a coach. I was going to say I played for Coach McCullough back when he had hair. But he didn't have hair back then either.
Oh, come on, I did that.
A little bit. Also, I found out that I played against your athletic director in high school football. Didn't realize it, but all these years later, I can thank him now for we beat them pretty good that day. So it's really nice to be back.
Actually, that was Coach Ben.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
You never beat me.
Okay.
You could have, but
you know, the thing is nice about coming here is it's driving down here. It is very familiar, and it's nice to get away for a day. I don't know who else is talking here today, or who else has talked. I heard Coach Maloney, but I think that what I can share with you a little bit is, and I'll talk, and then we can have some questions if you have questions. But I've actually been in your seat. You know, I can relate to, you know, sitting in your chair and going to this school and walking through this hallway and understanding, you know, what's going through your head a little bit. North Judson, Indiana. Anyone ever heard of North Judson, Indiana? You know, it's 1,200 people. Not kind of familiar. We had my graduating class was 99. We had the same people that played football, got beat, and whenever we got beat, then we on Monday and on Friday. On Monday we were at basketball practice, and whenever we got beat basketball, that Friday or Saturday, then we went to baseball or track. But I played baseball, so that was very familiar. I've been in your seat, and I understand where you consider the future, and it's like, what's that? How, you know, what am I going to do, and how am I going to get from here to wherever I want to go? If everyone wants to think big when they're a teenager, and you should. But I can remember that when you were, you know, when I was in North Judson as a teenager in a small town, I had big thoughts, but I didn't know how realistic really they were. So I guess I'm here to tell you today that they're pretty realistic. If you have really driven, committed, defined goals and a passion for what you do, and you find that whatever it is that you want to do and that you're passionate about, it's pretty realistic. You can actually do whatever the heck you want to do, no matter where you come from. You know, these hallways, this small school, this small town, I am very fortunate. I came from a small town, and I work at one of the biggest newspapers in America. It's probably what I think is the best sports city in America. My job is to go to games in Chicago and have an opinion on what I see and share with people in the newspaper, on the radio, and on television what I think about what I saw. I'm never wrong. I mean, it's your opinion. That's a great. I'm undefeated as a coach, never been beaten, and all you have to do is basically, if you're a fan of sports and you have an opinion when you turn on the Colts or IU or Purdue or whoever, or Notre Dame, you know, my job is to share that opinion that everybody has. I get paid for it, and that's really what is my dream job. When I was 14 years old, and I used to walk down a gravel road to get the paper, a Sunday paper, and read the Chicago Tribune. That was what I wanted to do, and that's what I'm doing. And you know, so I'll go through some things that have helped me get to this point, and ignore some of the limitations that maybe you think are inherent from being in a small town, and what's worked and maybe what hasn't worked. But the number one thing I think you have to appreciate as you go along the way, and what I appreciate, is that you've got to have breaks. You've got to have a break somewhere along the way. And everybody will get a break, and everybody will get a chance, an opportunity to take advantage of. And you just got to recognize when that is, and don't blow it, and not take it for granted, and not be shy and stepping forward to take advantage of what is clearly a break. Mine came when I was high school sophomore. Okay, actually the first year I'd ever played for Coach McCullough, when I was after basketball season, and we had in high school, it was in my sophomore English class, and we had an assignment. You guys may have an assignment: shadow a professional for a day. Pick somebody you want to shadow for a day. And so, like, I always wanted to write. I loved to write. I loved the newspaper. I was kind of a weird kid. I got the sporting news when I was like 8 years old, cover to cover. I really loved sports writing. I loved to write. So I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I didn't know who to shadow. So I came home. My dad said, "Well, we got the South Bend Tribune. That's the biggest paper that we got." And he said, "Hey, why don't you call the sports editor for the South Bend Tribune and see that if he would welcome you for the shadow day?" And I would, like a lot of you probably feel right now, there's no way in heck I'm calling somebody I don't know, an adult in a bigger city, and saying, "Hey, can I come follow you around for a day?" Because that sounds weird to do, right? You're like, "Oh God, I'd never do that." And I never wanted to do that. My dad said, "Do it, I'll dial." I can remember vividly. He's dialing, but we had rotary phone. It wasn't a cell phone, it wasn't a rotary phone. He dialed the number, cold call, out of the blue. I didn't know this guy, I didn't know the sports editor, never met him before. I just had read him my entire life, I was like 16. So I read him for years, and got him on the phone. His name was Bill Moore. He was a sports columnist and sports editor at the South Bend Tribune. And he said, "Bill Moore, South Bend Tribune." And I was like, get like cotton mouth. He couldn't talk. I was nervous, and I spat out whatever it is that I spat out. But I made the point that something about career day, something about following him, something about North Judson. And then I had to repeat myself about 6 times. Long story short, so he said, "Great, come up. Love to have you. No problem." So a week later, my mom drives me up to South Bend, drops me off for the day. He takes me around I watch him the South Bend Tribune in those days was an afternoon newspaper. I watched him put the paper together. I watched him go through the meetings. And then he interviewed me. Because I'm an athlete that, was having some success in that area. I also played, that was a year that I played for the first female baseball coach in Indiana. So that was a story there. So anyway, he interviewed me to show me what an interview was like. And I'm thinking, this is great. I remember thinking, this is a great practical experience. He's actually interviewing me just for the sake of interviewing me, so he can show me what it's like to be interviewed. I get home the next day, and the column was about me visiting him with my picture, and it was like, hey, this is pretty cool. Everyone should have a career day this good. And, he wrote a story about me wanting to be a sports writer. He wrote a story about me as a student athlete. He wrote a story about all the things that made a good story. He's a good writer. But the reason that that was so impactful wasn't because I got some publicity out of the deal, okay? The reason it was, okay, so cold call, good experience, but he kept in touch. I kept in touch with the contact. It was a connection. It was a network. And you've got to make these connections, okay? And kept in touch with him as I graduated high school, went to college, went to Ball State. My senior year in high school, he came down to get into another college. We had a football team that was pretty good, and they did a story on that, and we established a relationship, a rapport, which is what you need. When I got to college, he kept in touch and followed my career. And called me, it was my junior year at Ball State. I can remember it was my junior season. And he said, "What do you do next summer?" I said, "I don't know what to do next summer. I mean, I probably will get a job, so I don't know. I'm not sure." And how would you like to be our first sports intern at South Bend Tribune? And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure, great." I mean, they created a position. My internship was that summer of my junior year at Ball State. I went and did everything that a regular full-time sports writer would do that summer. It was the best experience of my life, the biggest summer of my life. And I lived in his attic, went to work at the South Bend Tribune, and one day, just for to add to the rest of the story, his wife's sister came to visit him from Scotland, where she lived. He introduced me to her, and we've been married 26 years. Introduced me to my wife, got me to start my job, and set me sort of on this great course of where you appreciate things that happen to you. And it all started with a phone call from a career day that I didn't really want to be a part of. So you have to take advantage of breaks, and you have to recognize when an opportunity comes your way. And it's not always going to be like, a situation where you're gonna, now everyone's gonna be going home, on a date, someone get a career day, and somebody's gonna introduce you to your wife or husband or whatever. That's not good. That's just sort of a fun part of the story. But the thing that I think, once you get a break, once you get a chance, and professionals like giving kids and young people, young professionals, chances and opportunities, and giving them breaks, whether it's coaching, journalism, or whatever, take advantage. How do you take advantage? Well, I heard Coach Maloney say this, and it's absolutely the truth. It's absolutely the truth. The only two things you can control in your career are going to be your attitude and your effort. Attitude and your effort. There's nothing else about what's going to happen to you in college, the rest of your high school career, or as a professional that you can control beyond those two things. But when you can control those two things and make those predictable every single day, then you've got to make it. Then you're going to be able to predict your course one way or another. Attitude and effort. I'll give you an example. So when I got done with Ball State, I played football. I majored in football at Ball State. And I got done, and I really didn't have much practical experience. I wanted to be a sports writer, but I had my internship at the South Bend Tribune, and that was it. Because I couldn't really work at the daily newspaper because of football. And I went to Northwestern Graduate School up in Evanston, just north of Chicago. And I still needed to get more than just that education, more than just a master's degree. So I worked at the South Bend Tribune on weekends. Because I believed this at the time, that effort and attitude are the only things you control. I worked 22 straight weekends. I remember having a calendar and marking off X, 22 straight weekends. I drove from Evanston to South Bend on a Friday afternoon. And let me tell you, Chicago traffic on Friday afternoon, no pick. It's still no pick all these years later. And I worked at South Bend Tribune Friday night and Saturday night on the copy desk to get experience there. Because I knew that was the way to make an impression. Your effort will make an impression for you when your experience is non-existent. Because you don't have any experience. I didn't have any experience. the only way to get experience is to work hard enough to kind of get people to notice you. So that was one example. The other example, and it's still sort of true, and it still carries over, so you don't have to go back to this ancient example. October just ended, and I have a great job, and I love my job, okay? But sometimes it's nuts. It's like ridiculously, it's too much. But you have to do it. October, anyone Cubs fan in here? Okay, Cubs fan. So the Cubs started, the playoffs October 6th, I think it was, and through the loss to the Dodgers. But everyone likes to have a day off, but if you're covering the Cubs, which is what I do, I mean, if you're following the Cubs and writing columns about the Cubs games, you don't really have a day off. So, you work we went a 23-day stretch where there are 23 straight columns on Cubs or the playoffs of baseball or Bears, whatever. The 23 straight days, I couldn't control what was going to happen, but I could control the work or the effort that you put into working 23 straight days just to do your job. I mean, that's the only thing that, is predictable about my business is that if you show up, it's going to count for something. So take advantage of your breaks with attitude and effort, and that'll serve you well. That travels well. The other thing that I think is important to remember, if you remember nothing else about today, besides me meeting my wife in South Bend, I do people remember. You want to, it's kind of hard to diplomatic about. You want to develop an edge, okay? To succeed at anything, I think, is that you have to have an edge. You have to find some sort of thing that motivates you when you can't muster the effort, or in an impossible situation, and your attitude stinks. Because you're going to have bad days. You're going to have bad days. As much as I'd like to tell you that you can control your effort every single day of your career, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's human nature. You just can't. But those are the days where you got to figure out something that drives you beyond what normally drives people. An edge, a moment, a failure, something that sticks in your head that you remember from 30 years, okay? Or you can remember. I can remember a slight when I was a freshman in high school from a coach, you remember things. And what you got to do in your career is find out whatever that is as a professional and use it. Athletes can relate to this, I think, because everybody has been beaten out or, failed. Failure is a tremendous motivator. I can tell you, as an athlete, there's nothing more. I'm in journalism because of failure. Okay, I was a defensive back for Ball State, and the moment that I realized I was going into journalism was I can remember the exact moment. I was pretty good senior. I had a pretty good senior year. I was all conference. I started getting letters from agents. I thought, okay, NFL tryouts because these are the tone of the letters. And I was an all-MAC safety, and we had a bowl game in the California Raisin Bowl. We played Fresno State on ESPN, and it was 2nd and 10 at the 14-yard line. And I was two safety, and I was on one hash mark, and they ran a out pattern to the other hash mark, and I was late in getting over. They completed the pass, and the receiver, who later played in the NFL, ran down the sidelines, and I chased him. Now, usually you see that, okay, you start chasing him, somebody closes the gap, somebody catches him, this tackle, okay, I was chasing him, and he was getting away further and further and further. And my Sports Center moment is chasing this guy the last 20 yards of a Fresno's California Raisin Bowl record 86-yard touchdown pass. And you see my back of my jersey for the last 10 yards, and this guy's celebrating in the end zone. Okay, at that moment, I knew I was headed to sports writing. That was my "you're not welcome to the NFL" moment. And it was humbling. But you need that. That's an edge. That's an edge. But in journalism, what has always motivated me is something I don't really talk about a lot. But my first job was the South Bend Tribune. I went back there after grad school, and they gave me a lot of, I covered Notre Dame football, and I thought that I was pretty opinionated, that's part of the job. I wanted to write something that was really, everybody impactful and strong opinion. And I did, and I wrote a column that year that basically criticized Notre Dame for accepting, it was a critical column. It was after the Penn State game. I was sitting in the Penn State press box. I was 23 years old. I thought I was on top of the world. And I kind of was. I thought I was kind of full of myself. And I wanted to run that column. I filed my column, and my sports editor, same guy who introduced me to my wife, and who I trusted, and this is now my brother-in-law, says to me, okay, I'm not running your column. I don't care how good it is. I was like, how can you not run my column? It's great. This is, I worked so hard. Like, I'm not running your column. Well, why? He said, because I don't want, people are going to wake up in the morning and they're going to read the South Bend Tribune, and they're going to see you giving Notre Dame advice and being critical of this and critical of that. They're going to say, who in the hell is David Haugh? Who in the hell is David Haugh? David Haugh is nobody to them. And he was right. Okay, he was absolutely right. I was absolutely over my skis. It was a column that if I would read, later, and I was, come on. And I've said this to people. I know, but I was wrong. It was too much, too blustery, too full of. I could do that now. I couldn't do that then. Who the hell is David Haugh? And that was, even though the right decision, a voice that I heard in my head every single time that I wrote something that was important, or that I wrote anything at all. You became motivated to say, I want to get to the point where people aren't reading me, and editors or seeing my work, hearing me, whatever, and they're saying like, who is this guy? Who's this guy? You want to find an edge that motivates you to prove something. Now, I'm not saying that's always the most healthy thing in the world. It can be obsessive at times, but you kind of want to be obsessively driven to succeed at times too. So that edge is, not a bad thing to let drive you, because that drove me every day I was in South Bend. And when I got to Chicago, I've been here for 15 years in February. And when I first got to Chicago, it was I interviewed for a job that I didn't get. I interviewed to be the columnist. I actually interviewed for the job that I have now. And I finished second. And I finished second to a guy who was a great colleague, great writer, great friend now. His name is Mike Downey, and he's retired, but I finished second to columns. And I remember the person who helped make the decision say, you just don't have, they said to me, you just don't have enough gray hair. You're just not, and I said, what do you mean by that? Can I sue you for that? You just don't have enough gray hair, meaning you're just not wise enough. You just don't come across as being wise enough to be somebody who writes columns and has perspective, which is my job to have perspective as a columnist. And I remember thinking that almost not every single day, as much as like, who the hell is David Haugh type of thing. But I remember often enough to where, okay, if that's the impression I'm leaving, then I need to do something about that. And when I do get that job, and I will get that job, then I want to be able to have nobody say that, you're too young, or you're too shallow, or you're too this, or you're too that, to give me a perspective that will respect. Because I felt like that was sort of disrespecting the whole idea of, that you could write in a way that people would find, show the perspective. So I didn't get that job, but they made me the Bear Peak writer instead. All above the envelope. So develop an edge, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to make you a negative person, but I think that everybody can understand how you can use a negative as a springboard to a positive. Okay. My son, real quick story, and I see it. My son, and he's 17. He's a high school senior, like a lot of you here, and he's a hockey player. He's a hockey player who got cut. He's a year younger than his class. He got cut from the high school team, from the freshman team when he was going into after his 8th grade year. And he could play the next year of bantam hockey, but he got cut. He got placed in the JV team. Hockey's a club sport, so he decided to take that and motivate himself to, dive in, play hockey every single. And the next year, he got drafted by the team that was the rival of the team that cut him. And now every year or every game he goes against, it shaped his entire career because he made that the sort of moment of truth for him. So find your edge and use it to your advantage. This is the last couple things. It's important too to kind of, not to go all Tim McGraw on you here, but when you say like you want to be humble and you want to be kind, humble and kind, it's a song, it's a good song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but when you progress, when you go through this whole progression, people are going to remember a couple things about it, and it may be your talent, it may be the way that you play or work or whatever, but they're going to remember the impression you make on them as a person. Okay, they're going to remember if you meet them and you shake hands, you make eye contact, and you're sincere, and you're not looking through them, and you're not looking at your phone, or you're not worried about whatever's going on in your life that prevents you from making a human connection with whoever it is you're talking to. Okay, there's a lot of things that it's a pretty broad umbrella, but people aren't going to remember. They may remember your resume. They may remember your first day or second day on the job. They may remember you in a pool, a sea of 100 employees. But they're likely to remember the human interaction and the way that you can, ensure that is just to, give them a moment, give them a reason to remember you for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons. Okay, don't be the person who gives somebody ammunition to support their idea that millennials are all sort of self-absorbed, social media obsessed young professionals. Give them a reason to think that you're different, or that you are beyond that, or you're something different. And savor. Don't forget who we are, where you came from, and kind of appreciate that. Look, in the last 10 years, since I've become a columnist, I've been very lucky to cover Game 7 of the Cup World Series last year. That was probably, that was great. I've covered 3 Stanley Cup championships in Chicago with the Blackhawks. The White Sox won the World Series, went out in Chicago. I was there. The Tribune has sent me to London for the Olympics. I've been to Japan for things. I've been very fortunate to cover a lot of great sporting events all over the world, and things that if you're a Chicago sports fan are on kind of like your, monumental moment in Chicago sports history. And if people ask me, and they ask me all the time, what is your most memorable sports moment? What's your most memorable sporting event that you've been to? And I don't bore them with the real answer, okay? Because the real answer, they have no idea what I'm talking about. They would have no idea what I'm talking about. They want to hear, Game 7 was awesome, and Chapman got lit up, and then they brought in the rain delay, and it was great. And then, Bryant threw to Rizzo, and boy, the Cubs celebrated. Or the Hawks. I mean, those are the answers that people in Chicago resonate with them mostly. Mine is like high school sports. Okay, I've toyed around with writing a book. Everything I learned about life, I learned playing high school football, okay, or basketball. But my most memorable sporting event was when we got beat. Again, we got beat my senior year. We had 10 straight shutouts. We were ranked number 1 in the state. We were in Sports Illustrated, USA Today. We got beat on a rainy night in Jimtown. North Judson 22, Jimtown 29. It was awful. And I was lucky. That was the most traumatic moment of my life to that point. And it was awful. And that's what I remember. And I remember a basketball game where, Kurt Mann scored 52 points, I think it was. I remember that, as vividly as I covered, as anything that I've ever covered. And it's because I value that time in your life, and I value where I came from more than I value kind of where I am. Not more than, but every bit as much. And that's the perspective that I think, you want to have when you move on from here, or when you have goals from here, is that you appreciate where you're headed, but you don't forget where you were, where you started. And that's why, that's why it's important for me to come today, because, Dave McCullough, Brendan, they were great to me when I was in your chair, and you don't want to forget that. People who worked with you when you were, at the age and stage in your lives that you are. And as you move forward, you always appreciate that a little bit more as you get older, because you realize that this is a rare opportunity here to, real exciting time in your life. And you can dictate a lot of what happens to you. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And that's, if you play the cards right, then you're on your way. And wherever you're headed, don't forget where you came from. Okay, so that's kind of all I have in terms of prepared. But any questions you have about my job, about sports, I don't know, whatever questions you have. Anybody?
I have one.
Who's your favorite athlete you've ever covered?
Oh, my favorite athlete. That's a good question. Chicago or anywhere.
Anyway.
My first job was covering Lou Holtz at Notre Dame. I mean, he's not an athlete, he was a coach. He was fascinating from every day there was something that he, had something good to say. He was funny, he was probably the coach by which I measure everyone else. I'd say Brian Urlacher in Chicago. I probably had the best rapport. He was kind of love-hate type of thing. I knew him at different stages of his career. Brian Urlacher, I think he was the most interesting guy probably the best guy I've covered.
Some of us that watch the NFL, myself in particular, look at a guy like Jay Cutler and wonder, can you be an effective leader and have the body language and the demeanor that he used to have on the sideline or on the field? Or you probably know him as well. So
yeah, that's a really good question. Jay Cutler is you could have an entire day seminar on Jay Cutler. When I first met Jay Cutler, it was 2009, the first day he signed with the Bears. He came to Haugh, and then I had a one-on-one interview with him like the day later. And when I had my one-on-one interview, we were in a closed room, and he spent 15 minutes, I was allotted 20, and he spent 15 minutes standing there, looking at the ceiling, tossing a water bottle up, without making eye contact. And, it was very unusual. Most guys at least fake it, right? Jay didn't fake anything. The only time he stopped tossing the water bottle around was when I asked him a question. I said, which is more unfair? Comparing you to John Elway, where he just came from Denver, or comparing you to Jeff George, which is, not really a compliment. He stopped, and it's like, why would you ask me that? Or why would you ask me that blank question? We got off on the wrong foot because of that, probably. We didn't have a great relationship, but it changed over the years. And I think he changed over the years. So it got to the point where that was my starting point with Jay Cutler. His last year, before his last year in Chicago, we had another one-on-one at the end of the season where he was much more mature, much more, he got it. He definitely got it. He was sharing all sorts of information with me then. It was like we were pals. Not pals, Jay's not really pals with anybody in the media, but the point is that he evolved. And I think that, you can evolve. I still think that's an issue with him. But body language is powerful because it dictated the first, 8 years of his NFL career. And it said, I don't want to be here. You can't follow me. I'm a loser. That's kind of what he was saying, the way he handled himself. Whereas I think he came to understand, and I think you see it less now, the way he handled himself, and I think he's handled himself a lot better. But, yeah, he's an enigma.
So who have you covered that's totally opposite of him? Who, because of the way they carry themselves, you would follow?
That's a good question. Well, in terms of like quarterbacks, that's a straight comparison. Total opposite of Jay Cutler in Chicago with Josh McCown. Remember that Josh McCown still playing for the Jets. He was a guy that would come in the room, and if you're in a bad mood, you were in a good mood. He was a guy that came in not that the media stuff is important, but he would come into press conferences and he would remember everybody's name in the first row and say hello, how are you, what's new. He was sincere, he was kind, he was humble. This is a guy that is a great leader. Not because he interacts with the media, but you see the way that he interacts with teammates. That's just not a habit. You can't fake that. You go in and you're just gonna, I'm gonna schmooze some reporters and I'm gonna help my image, and that's the way it is. You saw him in the locker room going from, the guy, the long snapper that they signed for a tryout, he went up and he was asking him questions about his wife and his kids, and he showed an interest. And it takes energy to show an interest in people that you don't know and you want to get to know better. But that's leadership. And that's the way Josh McCown was a guy who understood leadership. Different sport, same idea. I know hockey's not huge here, but Jonathan Tays with Blackhawks is the same way. He takes, he understands that the way he behaves affects other people. And that's hard to do. Most everyone in this room got like nothing to worry about, right? You've got your job, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your whatever. You got all this, I'm worried about is what I do. But the true leaders understand that the way they act, what they say, how they do it, their body language, their energy level, their effort level affects other people and makes them better. It can make them worse too. If you're a bad leader and you have bad, you can change the temperature of the room by how you act. Jay Cutler did that. Josh McCown did that, and really, another guy that probably on the opposite end of the spectrum, not to pick on him, but just it makes it come to mind. He had tough going Chicago. Derrick Rose was like an immense talent, among the unbelievable MVP, right? Youngest MVP in NBA history. We were guilty of, we being the Chicago media, trying to see something that wasn't there in Derrick Rose. He wasn't a leader. He's not a leader. And that's okay. You're not going to have 10, if you have 15 guys on a team, you're not going to have 15 leaders. You might, but probably not. Derrick Rose is not a leader. This wasn't with his personality. And you see that right away. Sometimes when people try to be a leader, they act in a way that's not genuine, and say stupid stuff, they do stupid stuff. And that sort of was the story of his run in Chicago. Who else had the hand up?
Who was the wide receiver beat on the route or something that was in the NFL?
What's that?
What was the wide receiver?
I think his name was Eric Shelley, maybe? No, that was a long time ago. Don't worry, you're not any fancy football team or anything. Trust me. That was a long time ago.
What are some other big time players that
They've interviewed? Well, are you a Chicago sports fan or?
someone?
So, look, my job exposed me that if there's a Chicago sports athlete in the last 10, 15 years that you think of as a big name, I probably had to interview him or her. So, Brian Urlacher, Cubs, that's pretty good. Sammy Sosa. Sammy Sosa was a handful. Sammy Sosa was a handful, yes. Sammy Sosa was definitely one of these guys that liked to command the stage. Sammy Sosa, let's see, through sports. Bears,
You cross paths with Jordan?
Michael Jordan, yeah, not a lot, but he has a steakhouse in Chicago, and then we have some interest there. Michael Jordan held court for like 10 of us about, it must have been when he went into the Hall of Fame, which was probably 2008-ish. Yeah, 2008, we did a big special 64-page section on Michael Jordan into the Hall of Fame. So he deemed us worthy enough to have an audience with him. So we had like, and he's very, he's tons of charisma. You're lucky to expose a lot of these guys with a ton of charisma. The White Sox, how many White Sox fans in here? What? I'm kind of saying this in Chicago. Ouch. But no, I mean, I like covering the Sox because hey, once it's easier to get in and out of that park, but there's not many people there. I got a lot of characters over the years. Ozzie Guillen, Ozzie Guillen's probably as colorful as Anybody else?
Can you speak Spanish?
No. No, that's a really good question though. If you're covered, if you want to cover sports and baseball is a big part of that, that's a huge advantage. I took high school Spanish in a year in college and so just enough to kind of, sound stupid probably, but it's a huge advantage for the reporters that know how to speak Spanish and communicate with Hispanic players in baseball. Because in a baseball clubhouse, it's definitely advantageous. That's one of those things. You make your own breaks, learn Spanish, and become an MLB writer.
Any Bears were starting fantasy this week? Just a real question. Do you have like a future goal? Like, you're kind of where you're at in your career. Do you have anything you set, like, where you want to get to? What's left?
It was funny to hear Coach Maloney say, you want to finish first and finishing fifth and Dale Earnhardt. That's a great story. There's a lot of truth to that. But I feel like I'm finished first right now. I feel like I'm where I want to be. And now I worry less about stuff like that. And I'm concerned with my son going to college and going to hockey games and stuff, and doing your job. The thing about in this market, in the Chicago market, any market, is that the competition factor forces you to not be complacent. I mean, I feel not complacent. I feel comfortable to where I don't know what else I would do. I don't know where I don't want to go. I don't want to go to where would I go? I mean, I don't want to go to ESPN or somewhere like that. I like the idea of having a community to cover or a city to cover. I like the local sports, local news aspect of it. We might want more TV. The news business is changing a lot, so my specific role may change some. More radio, TV, but I take the fight.
You cover any of the 2003 NLCS?
Department? No. I was on the Bears beat at that time, so I was spared the Cub experience. The Cub fan. You cannot have been that old at that time. I know everything about game 6. Yeah. But they won the World Series. Didn't give it up. I mean, they won. But it's over. That's why this year was easier to take the Cubs because they won last year.
Favorite Chicago piece?
Blue Mountain Abbey's. Yeah, Blue Mountain Abbey. Oh, did you? Where at? Which one? Well, okay. Yeah. All right. That's cool. Yeah. So that's why you're a Sox fan. Yeah.
What's your favorite sport to cover?
That's a good question. I said this the other day, sort of in jest, but I kind of mean it. If all I had to do was football and hockey, I would be like thrilled. I mean, I like the other sports, but football and hockey are the most favorite for me. I mean, I play football, so it's more second nature. And hockey, I've become. Look, I didn't grow up knowing hockey, playing hockey, having awareness of hockey, but I love it now. Going to Chicago or something like that, if I covered only football and hockey, I'd be fine. Good.
Favorite hockey player?
Patrick Kane. Yeah. I mean, I like Kane. Kane's the most fun to watch. You like hockey? Yeah, he's the best. He's the best. Good listener. All right. Look at the map first, okay? It's a long drive. All about 3 hours. Absolutely.
That's not.
You're driving 6 hours every other week.
All right, everybody else, let's go.